we must understand that it is absurd that there are school districts throughout this country where there are major shortages of teachers. And if we understand the enormously important work that teachers do, that means, in my view, among many other things, that we should be paying public school teachers a minimum of at least $60,000 a year.
Now, you're probably not surprised that Bernie Sanders 3 weeks ago is advocating for people like public school teachers. Here's the amazing thing in American politics. He said we should do a thing, and now he's doing that thing. He has introduced a bill, the Pay Teachers Act, that would establish a $60,000 minimum salary for public school teachers across the country, and here he is making the case for why we need to pass this.
In America today, the starting pay for teachers in almost 40% of our school districts is less than $40,000 a year. Further, 43% of all teachers in America make less than $60,000 a year. This situation has become so absurd, and it really tells us about our priorities, that the top 15 hedge fund managers on Wall Street make more money in a single year than every kindergarten teacher in America, over 120,000 teachers.
That's the sort of message that should probably work well in a conservative population that says they hate elites and the deep state and all that. No, I'm glad that he's doing this though. I have some amazing stats for you. He gave you some amazing stats. Here are some others. He said that the average weekly wage of a public school teacher has gone up in the past 30 years, once you adjust for inflation, just $29. 3 whole decades, multiple generations of students going through. The collective future of our country, and for all of their labor, they're $29 a week better off on average. Some are actually doing worse than they would have 30 years ago. Many of the top, more than half of the nation's schools are actually understaffed right now. When you poll teachers, roughly half of them are saying that they are already considering leaving the profession. Because, like, I want you to just remember, just briefly, like, go back like 6 years ago. I think we could all agree that being a public school teacher was a thankless job. It was incredibly important, but few people focused on it. They didn't make much money off of it. They had to work long hours, including in the summers. They had to provide supplies for their students. And as bad as it was for teachers then, that was before the Republicans decided to train their followers that every public school teacher are also probably a sexual predator. Like, they could not have imagined at that point that it was going to get worse for them, but it has. And it's time for someone to balance the scales with a bit of support. So kudos to Bernie Sanders for pushing for that.
Okay, 2 more amazing stats. Wages for public school teachers, this also comes from Bernie Sanders. Wages for public school teachers are so low that in 36 out of the 50 states, the average public school teacher with a family of 4 qualifies for food stamps, public housing, and other government assisted programs. Our teachers have to go on food stamps in about 2/3 of our states, food stamps. Teachers earn nearly 24% less than similarly educated professionals. And Bernie Sanders called it simply unacceptable. That's the only part that's the bad news. It's apparently eminently acceptable, because that's the situation we find ourselves in now. The country has accepted it. And so, first of all, great job by Bernie Sanders. Look, by the way, now the Democrats have lost the House. Biden has proposed a fantasy budget, and I don't mind it. It's a fine first step. He will do nothing to fight for it. You'll see every progressive proposal in there will be killed instantly without 1 inch of a fight, okay? And they'll accept all the conservative ones, like the defense spending. The only people fighting back are the 2 people we've shown you on the show today consistently, AOC and Bernie Sanders. So here's Bernie Sanders saying, how about the teachers? By the way, Democrats, you know, the Republicans won in 2021, like the Virginia governor's race and a couple other races, because they said it was a war on parents, right? because, oh my God, they're teaching about racism. What you should have done at that moment is immediately say that the Republicans are doing a war on teachers, which is absolutely true. They've attacked teachers in 1,000 different ways. And that Don't Say Gay bill in Florida says that teachers can personally be sued out of existence in total and utter bankruptcy if they make the mistake of ever mentioning the word, the fact that gay people exist, okay? I mean, if Jesus, it is clearly, obviously a war on teachers, and then this would fit perfectly into that frame. And then you put the question to the American people. Do you want to attack teachers, or do you want to pay them a living wage so they don't have to go on food stamps? I guarantee you that 3/4 of Americans, even tons of Republicans, will say, no, we're for the teachers. Can I ask you to do the simplest framing? All right, so I'm gonna say that to everybody but Bernie. And by the way, you've seen this show, we've criticized Bernie plenty lately, okay, but here he's doing God's work. Thank you for actually taking initiative and he actually proposed a bill. Okay, last thing from me on this. To be fair, how are we gonna pay for that? And this thing does cost about $45 billion a year. Well, that sounds a lot to pay teachers all across the country. All the teachers, get them up to 60,000. Huge percentages of you just heard don't make anywhere near 60,000. Get them all up. In West Virginia, in Kentucky, all the teachers can be 60,000. By the way, 60,000 in a lot of parts of this country is a hell of a salary. That incentivizes a lot of people to leave what they're doing, smart people, and go become teachers. Wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, well, is 45 billion a lot? It's 5% of the defense budget. The defense budget, which is so overloaded with pork, it's just pigs at the trough. Defense contractors take half of that budget. So if all you did was take 10% of the money being completely and utterly wasted, flushed down the toilet to defense contractors, you can give every teacher in America $60,000 salary. That would poll at like 90% in the country. Democrats, do you have any fight in you? So progressives, I love you. This is step 1 and step 2 from Bernie. Step 3 is the minute Biden says, no, I'm gonna need all of your votes on my bloated piece of crap defense budget, you go, no, hell no, not even close. You give us the money for teachers, take it out of the defense budget. It's only 5%, and you just added 10%. Well, you'll see the numbers later in the show. You just added a giant amount. So give it to the teachers, otherwise we all vote no. I don't know that you win, but at least you make a stand. So thank you, Bernie.
Teaching is, I think we can all agree, and the viewers will agree, one of the most noble lines of work in this country. And people do it out of a love for educating young people and trying to make their communities a better place. You would think with a Republican Party so concerned about America falling behind, not remaining the world's superpower, you would think they would recognize the role education plays in long-term sustained success. The reason that we're lagging behind in so many areas compared to the rest of the developed world, from infrastructure to innovation to technological advancements, you can point specifically to education and a disinvestment and a tax on public education. You have to acknowledge the racism in our history, in our country's history, and how that affects this issue too. Because redlining still has an impact on school funding, because they've tied school funding to property taxes. And when you had decades of redlining and Jim Crow and all of these policies, these racist policies, pushing Black and poor people into the same communities and then tying the school funding to the property taxes, this is the result. You have wealthier white schools doing well and getting a ton of funding, and you have poor Black schools lagging behind. We need a more equitable approach to how we see education in this country. And that is something you could really sell on a bipartisan basis if you frame it around innovation and advancement and competition on a global level. It starts in the schools, and it has a multi-generational effect. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, and it's why I think they put so much effort into trying to demonize teachers, to get people to think of them as predators. They're coming for your kids rather than someone who is ideally going to be helping set up your kid for a life of success, of getting a satisfying and productive career, of living a good life. Ask these parents, do you want your kid's teacher to be focused on your kid, or do you want them to be working a second and a third job? Do you want your kid to be one of the priorities for this teacher because they're struggling to make ends meet? I wonder how many in Florida, for instance, would respond to that right now.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.